and then all your suitcases, your duty-free perfumes and your duty-free alcohol and your backpacks and your Gucci purses and everything starts flying. Hello there and greetings from Tenerife. I am Meg from MegsWanderings. I am a travel content creator, a flight attendant and a spritzer enthusiast. Prost, oder? Today I'm going to be answering the question that every person who has a fear of flying has Googled at one point or another. Can you guess? You don't have to, it's in the title. I'm going to be telling you where are the safest seats on an aircraft, in my opinion.
As a person working in civil aviation and as someone who has done quite a bit of research on the topic and as someone who has seen every single episode of Air Crash Investigation.
Ever. Let me preface this by saying that the answer to this question depends largely on what kind of aircraft are we talking about and what kind of an emergency are we expecting. Let's just say we're in a Boeing 737, okay? We're going to be landing, there's some sort of a problem with the landing gear, the plane goes to one side, one of the engines is scratching the ground, inevitably resulting in a spark that ignites it. If you're sitting somewhere in the middle, there's a very good chance that you won't be able to evacuate yourself simply because of your proximity to the engine and the fact that those exits nearest to the engine will be unusable at such a point. If you're sitting on a first row seat though, you have a very good chance of escaping. At the same time, if you're sitting on a front row seat on the same aircraft type and it's crashing in the woods in the middle of nowhere, front row seats will take most of the force of the impact with the ground. And this will most likely result in more injuries and more deaths than people sitting in the very back of the plane. These are just two very quick examples of why there isn't really a perfect and correct answer to the question, where are the safest seats on a plane? But in 99.9% of cases, planes do land on runways, and there are some emergencies that are more likely to happen than others. So, based on that, here is my take on it. Let me just... Better. So now that I got my glasses that I don't really need because I have perfect vision and I'm only using them for dramatic purposes, let's go. As a general rule, the further you are from the engines, the better, in my opinion. If the engines are beneath the wings, I always choose to sit at the rear part of the aircraft as a passenger. If for some reason I'll be flying like a DC-9 or something, although who even flies that anymore, I will choose seats in the middle. Generally speaking, there are a few upsides to choosing last row seats, which are: number one, what is the most important thing on this aircraft that shouldn't be damaged and should be kept in the safest place possible in the event of a crash? Any guesses? There is a reason that the CVR and the FDR are being kept in the tail of the plane. Did you ever think of that? During a crash landing, there's a possibility that the tail part of the aircraft would just detach itself from the force of the impact with the ground, and this way the black boxes are preserved. The rest of the plane can be engulfed in The rest of the plane can be engulfed in flames because of the engines, but the black boxes, they're fine, and the rear part, which is detached and it's like somewhere. You know, the tail part is good. You're good. If you're sitting in the tail part, I mean, you're good as far as you can be okay in such a situation. Even if the tail doesn't attach. Number two, even if the tail doesn't detach upon the impact, the force with which you hit the ground is being very much absorbed by the front part of the plane. There is evidence to suggest that during plane crashes, most of the people who survive have actually been sitting in the last rows of the aircraft. So I'm gonna just leave you draw your own conclusions on that. Oh my god, I'm so uncomfortable. Ugh. So many facts. Okay, let's continue. According to Popular Mechanics, who based their study on files from the NTSB, people who are sitting in the back have 69% chance of survival compared to 49% who for people who are sitting in the front. Number 3, another perk is that if you're sitting on the last row, you're basically next to an emergency exit, so you can evacuate yourself much quicker than if you're sitting, let's say, 10 rows ahead. Okay, let's drink. So now that you know why I personally choose to sit in the last rows, I'm going to tell you which seats are the best. And by the best, I mean the safest. And by the safest, I mean in my opinion. Okay, so imagine that there's a really bad turbulence, or there's a very hard, rough landing with a forceful impact with the ground. What could very well happen is that overhead compartments can open by themselves because of the force of the impact, and then all your suitcases, your duty-free perfumes and your duty-free alcohol, all your baby car seats, all your this and that, and your backpacks and your Gucci purses and everything starts flying. Things start falling out, they can cause injuries, and they could become projectiles. And can you guess which passengers are going to be most affected by that? The ones sitting on aisle seats, of course. Okay, I see where you're going with this. So this means that probably the seats next to the window are the safest, right? Well, not really. If you're sitting on a window seat, that means that you will be the last person to evacuate from this row because you have to wait for the passengers next to you. And if they're unconscious, dead, or they're in a state of panic and they're not moving, you're basically stuck and you're losing precious time. And don't forget that an evacuation has to take place in 90 seconds before things get real bad. Also, another thing concerning window seats, there was a really horrible situation on board of 737. I don't remember the airline, but it was somewhere in the US. There was a woman who was basically almost sucked out of the window after an engine failure resulted in some shrapnel breaking the window, which of course resulted in rapid decompression. And this woman, I think that she wasn't wearing her seatbelt, but I'm not 100% sure. This is what I remember from the article. So she was almost sucked out of the window, and as a result, unfortunately, she passed away. Several other people were injured on this flight, and this is a situation that really, it really doesn't happen every day. It doesn't happen often at all, but it's just something to think about. As you may have guessed by this point, I think that the safest seats on an aircraft are actually the most uncomfortable and the ones that no one wants to sit on, the middle seat. That way you're just less likely to get hit by items falling out from overhead compartments, but at the same time though, you're not as far away from the aisle in order to evacuate yourself as someone who is sitting next to you on the window seat. So there you have it. The safest seat on a plane, in my opinion, is a middle seat on one of the last rows of the aircraft. Of course, as I said, emergencies come in all kinds of shapes and sizes, and there's not really a way to predict what kind of emergency situations you're going to find yourself in. I hope you're not going to find yourself in any emergency situations, obviously. But you can crash land and be perfectly fine sitting on the first row. And at the same time, you could also get a panic attack sitting on the last row and not be able to evacuate yourself because you can't open your seatbelts. Unfortunately, this is no joke. Many times people have died because in a state of panic, they don't really know how to open their seatbelts. No definitive answer. So as I said, this is just my take on this topic. This is how I choose my seats when I travel as a passenger. You can research this topic by yourself. There's plenty of material on the internet. I've left some research materials in the description down below. And if you found this video informative or entertaining in any way, shape, or form, you can give it a like. If you have any questions or comments, you can let me know down below. And if you enjoy learning more about traveling, aviation, and other very random topics I like to talk about, you might consider subscribing to this channel. It's completely free and it helps me create more content like this. Ooh, I was so busy talking that I forgot my drink. Not good.